Hello, I'm Lawrence Smith, the editor of Kentucky Today, and welcome to the Kentucky Today podcast. And as usual, I'm alongside Mark Maynard, our managing editor, Tessa Redmond, our life issues reporter, and Chip Hutchison, the content editor for Kentucky Today. Good to see you all. It's been a couple of weeks since we were together. We're deep into summer, so I thought I'd start by just finding out kind of what your highlights have been so far this summer.
Well, I'll start, and I'll tell you, last week, my wife and I watched our grandkids, 4 and 9 years old, and I took some vacation time from work, and now need vacation time to get over the vacation. So I don't know how that works, but it was a lot of fun, of course, and the parents got away for a few days, and we were in control. Most of our summer and spring has been watching our grandson play 9 and under baseball. They played, believe this or not, 50 games in that time since February. They have played 50 games.
That's almost a major league season right there.
Yeah, I know. So if you ask me what I've been doing, that's one thing for sure. But we've had a good time with them, and it was a blessing for sure.
Sure. That sounds like fun. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go. My daughter, Evelyn, she is about 16 months old now. And so this is the first summer where she's not just a precious little potato and she can do things. And so we bought a splash pad and put it up in the backyard a couple times. And it's just been so fun. The first time in particular, I mean, she was just squealing in the light and running around and laughing. And I remember looking at her and getting emotional and thinking, man, is this the way God feels when we enjoy the good gifts that he gives us? And it was just such like a teachable moment for me, just like watching her enjoy a gift that we gave her. So that's been a huge highlight, and I look forward to being able to do more fun things with her this summer.
That is awesome, and a good perspective on that, Tessa. It really is. Chip?
Yeah. Well, we've had quite a summer. 4.5 weeks ago, we had a great grandson born. His name is Manny, and he's doing well. And then been able to the last several days spent some time with our great granddaughter Amara, who is 2.5, and she is such a joy. We've loved that. Gotten to play a little golf this summer with my son, and then here about 2-3 weeks ago, I preached at Tessa's church, First Baptist of Taylorsville. I'm looking forward to being at my home church from Princeton, Kentucky on this coming Sunday. So it's been a really fun summer so far.
Well, here's how much of a nerd I am. This highlight so far has been the Southern Baptist Convention annual meeting in Orlando. But I went there. I did some like 20 podcasts or so for Baptist Press. But my wife was able to go with me, so it was fun being in Orlando with her. But I have to admit the highlight was last Saturday, Father's Day, spending Father's Day with our grandson, Gideon, who's 2 years old, and his awareness of things that are happening are increasing, as his vocabulary. So it's just a lot of fun to be able to be out there with him. And since our son is an expert smoker of meats, it tasted pretty good as well. So we're glad it's been a good summer so far. Quiet one, but good. All right, let's get to the news. Besides ourselves, certainly one story that's gotten lots of attention this week is our breaking news about big goings on at Sunrise Children's Services. Sunrise has hired Terry Brooks, the longtime executive director of Kentucky Youth Advocates. For more than 20 years, Brooks has been the leading voice for kids in Kentucky, and now he's with Sunrise, or soon will be, starting July 1st. So I talked to Terry Brooks, and my first question was, why? You had, I imagine, a number of options after Kentucky Youth Advocates. Why Sunrise?
Well, Lawrence, a verse that has always animated me, but I don't know if I ever experienced it so strongly, is from Isaiah. And it says, whether from the left or the right, you will hear a voice that says, this is the way. I had an experience with Dale had asked me to bring a partner to the Springfield campus of Sunrise. And I did that as a favor for Dale. I
Dale
did not,
Suttles, who's
Dale
president
Suttles, who's president of Sunrise. And I did not have a thought in my mind about Sunrise intersecting with my future. I sat at that facility and I did not hear an audible voice, but I heard the Spirit move within me. I shared with you when I was talking to my wife about options. She said, well, all of those options are good. You're only talking about one coming from your soul. That kind of sold me on Sunrise. So I do not see this as a next chapter in my career. I hope and pray that it's in response to a calling from the Lord.
Talk about your faith journey. Talk about when you came to faith in Christ.
Yeah. Well, again, I do not have a dramatic movie of the week experience. When I was growing up, the expectation was that at 8:30 every Sunday morning, we were in the third pew from the left at Cooper Memorial Methodist Church, which is a rural church in southern Jefferson County. And if the church door was open, I was there, whether, frankly, I wanted to be at youth group or not. So I grew up really just Jesus and faith were always implicit in my life. We certainly, as a family, as we married and had children, tried to inculcate that same sense of faith. I've had wonderful opportunities ranging from serving as a deacon and an elder. Long ago, when I was young, I taught a class of senior citizens, which I thought was hysterical. Now I am a senior citizen and would have been teaching myself. And I even, twice I even did hazardous duty and chaired a pastor search committee. So, I've done combat duty as well as Sunday school teaching.
What's your vision for your role in Sunrise? You're called a vice president and ambassador. Talk about what that is and what you see as your role at Sunrise.
Yeah. Well, what intrigues me about the Sunrise experience, Lawrence, is that I've really had two very blessed professional experiences. I spent a quarter of a century as a public school administrator and then 21 years at KYA. If I were to draw a circle, two circles, here's the K-12 experience and here's the Sunrise experience, or the KYA experience, they intersect, and where they intersect is Sunrise. So at one level, I'm looking at, for instance, the education programming that all children in child welfare and Sunrise explicitly get. And let me just tell you, it is not good. It lacks quality. It lacks rigor. Well, I want to be able to lift what those little boys and little girls are learning at every Sunrise campus. So that's sort of the education piece of me playing out. The other thing that I hope I can be of support to the Sunrise team on is around policy issues. So whether that's in Frankfurt or in Washington, that meta narrative, the macro issues, they affect child welfare in a big way. The other thing that Sunrise, I think, is characterized by is imagination and innovation. And I love tackling long-standing issues in new ways. As an example, I believe that Kentucky has a unique opportunity, and especially churches in Kentucky have a unique opportunity to tackle what kinship families face. Kentucky has more kids living with grandmas and grandpas than any state in the nation. Not percentage, actual numbers. We have more kids who woke up today, some 60,000 woke up today, not able to stay in their homes with mom and dad, but living with a grandma and grandpa. Well, nationally, some of the most exciting supports that kinship families receive are from churches. I would love to be able to work with you all as well as churches throughout Kentucky and Sunrise and think about what are ways that faith communities could deliver, whether that's frozen casseroles or respite care. Uh, so I hope that that on the ground, can we help kids daily is part of my experience here. I certainly am willing to go to bat for Sunrise and Sunrise's kids in Frankfort and Washington. And then I would love to have an opportunity to think creatively about how we change the experience, whether that's for kinship families or young people aging out of care.
Talk about the policy side, the government side of this. Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, for instance, we know that Sunrise and every child welfare agency is facing cuts in reimbursement rates. And we often say that state budgets are not about dollars and cents. They're about priorities and values. I hope that what we can do together, churches, concerned citizens, principals, preachers, and policemen, as well as Sunrise, that we can start elevating the importance of kids when it comes to state budgets. We've seen that bourbon and battery plants are really important. We want boys and girls to be important. So number one is let's just act on priorities. If we say kids are important, put your money where your mouth is. Secondly, there are some policies that would really lift young people up that are fairly easily implemented. I'll give you an example, and I'll go back to kinship care. If you're a foster parent right now, you get respite care, just a break. You get an afternoon to go to the grocery or the doctor or just have a cup of coffee. Ironically, kinship families get less support, including no respite care, than do foster parents. That to me just seems wrong. If I'm a grandma, I am just as exhausted as that foster care parent. And I'm delighted that foster families get respite care. We want kinship families to get that as well. There's finally an arena that doesn't get talked about enough in child welfare, which is what happens when those young people are leaving Sunrise campuses in Glendale or Springfield or Mount Washington. How do we help them become self-sustaining young adults? How can they become part of the community, workforce, and contributing citizens? That back end of child welfare is really neglected in Kentucky. We at Sunrise have some pretty exciting ideas of how we could help young people transition from residential care to independent living. That's not going to come cheap, and it's not going to come easy. So we want to be able to lift the idea of the most vulnerable kids in Kentucky are in Sunrise's care. How much does Frankfort really care about those children? I hope that I can be part of a larger choir asking that question.
Bottom line, sounds like you want Sunrise to be at the table when these kinds of decisions are being made.
Yeah, I mean, in recent years, Sunrise has been really discriminated against because we're a faith-based group. I may have that wrong, but it seems like minimally it shouldn't be held against you. And in fact, I would respectfully suggest it should be considered an asset. So we want to be not just at the table, we want to be a catalyst. I am convinced, and I believe that leadership at Sunrise is convinced. I know national experts are convinced that the days for incremental improvement in child welfare, they're over. We're losing a generation if we nibble at the edges. We need a fundamental revolution in the way we treat abused and neglected children in this Commonwealth. And our vision is that Sunrise becomes a catalyst to make that revolution happen for every one of those boys and girls we serve, and more broadly for every boy and girl throughout Kentucky.
That's Terry Brooks, moving from Kentucky Youth Advocates, where he's been a leading voice for children for 20 years, to Sunrise Children's Services as the ambassador, vice president, and ambassador. Guys, lots of ambition there. Give me your thoughts on this idea of Brooks wanting to make child welfare the top priority, the lens through which other things are done in Kentucky. Who wants to go first?
I'll tell you, just the hire itself is tremendous. I think for Sunrise, Terry has been at the forefront of kids and helping kids, for 20 years, and he has been a strong advocate in the legislature, in how all that works. He knows how all that works, and I think that will benefit Sunrise a great deal. They need that, and any organization like Sunrise would need that. I think he is definitely on the right path there too, with a couple of things. One's the kinship thing. That is a serious issue in Kentucky that doesn't seem to get the attention it deserves. I mean, these people, there's so many grandparents raising their children now, a lot more than people really probably realize. But even he said there, Kentucky has more, even in number, than not just percentage, but even in number than anybody else. Obviously, that's a problem and it needs to be fixed. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And I think he's somebody that can push the right buttons for them. And I think a tremendous hire, just a great addition to their already stellar staff.
And in Kentucky, we talk a lot about funding education and creating jobs, but I think he's absolutely right. In order to educate those children, they need to have stable home environments. They need to be set up to thrive. They need to know how to transition into having a job. And so I think it's incredibly important to prioritize these issues. I think he's right on track, and that's a really big task. But just hearing him talk through a vision for that and to bring even more passion and expertise to a Sunrise team that is already so strong and so well equipped to pursue these goals, it's very exciting. And it's necessary work that we need to see done here in Kentucky.
Chip, you were around here, obviously, and Mark, you were too, when Governor Andy Beshear tried to end the contract with Sunrise Children's Services because it was biblically faithful to on the LGBTQ issue. Now, Brooks wants to make sure that Kentucky does not just tolerate faith-based organizations like Sunrise, but encourage them. That certainly would be a shift.
Yes, that's, I think, a great point, and certainly is needed. The situation you referred to several years ago, why would you not want Sunrise involved? And that became very obvious that they do it well. They are such great advocates and for children, for youth who've been in, let's face it, in very tragic, very difficult circumstances. I'm really encouraged by the Terry Brooks joining that organization, because he has instant credibility. And somebody new oftentimes has to earn a seat at the table. He doesn't have to. He has a seat at the table, and his voice is respected. And so I'm so encouraged. Sunrise does it well. Why would you turn away somebody who has the child's best interest at heart and will work tirelessly on their behalf? So Sunrise Children's Services, keep doing what you're doing, and let's move forward to help hurting children.
We certainly cannot deny the results that Sunrise gets, so we'll be watching to see how Terry Brooks is able to elevate their position and their standing in child welfare in Kentucky. Well, when we talk about the welfare of children, we have to include the unborn. And Tessa, you had some disturbing news about where that stands right now in Kentucky and across the country.
Yes, there's been some new research that's come out showing that over 1.1 million abortions happened nationwide in 2025. And that comes from something called the We Count report. It is an effort by the Pro-Abortion Society for Family Planning to track abortion access, abortion incidents across the nation, and by month, ever since Dobbs was or the Dobbs decision by the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade back in 2022, which, by the way, for those who don't know, today, June 24th, is actually the 4-year anniversary of that very good decision by the highest court that we have here in the U.S. So that the WeCount report, more than 1 million abortions here in the States. And what they found was most of those abortions, roughly 81% of those, are happening in the 26 states where abortion is legal. It also found that a majority of abortions are still in person. They're still at brick and mortar facilities. However, telehealth abortion has been on the rise since 2022. So back right before the Dobbs decision in April of 2022, 5% roughly of abortions were happening using telehealth services, which is when a medical provider will mail pills to someone regardless of where they're at. By the end of 2025, that was 28%. So a lot of this is facilitated by out-of-state providers shipping pills into states where abortion is illegal. And another thing I thought that was really interesting, which is not surprising, that the report found was nearly 100,000 abortions occurred in the 13 states where abortion is illegal. That includes in Kentucky. And abortions are still climbing here in Kentucky, even though it's not legal to have an abortion. We know, of course, state law provides life-saving medical care for women who are pregnant, treating ectopic pregnancies, hemorrhage, sepsis. All of that is covered, but you can't get an elective abortion here in Kentucky. But due to telehealth, there were nearly, and again, guys, these numbers, they all round up to 10 based upon the month. So these numbers may be conflated a little bit, but around 3,800 abortions were happening here in Kentucky. And that's over a 37% raise compared to 2024. So even though monthly totals are fluctuating, abortion in Kentucky and other states where it's illegal and states where it's legal in the U.S. continues to rise.
And that's in Kentucky primarily because of the availability of the abortion pills. And our Attorney General, Russell Colman, is doing what he can to reduce access to mifepristone. Talk about what he's doing there.
Yes, he recently joined a letter to the EPA requesting that they add mifepristone to their contaminant candidate list. And so what that is every 5 years, the Safe Drinking Water Act that was passed back in the 90s, it requires that this list of contaminants be updated. So there's a period of time where people can submit substances for consideration. Then the agency publishes a draft. So the draft recently came out. It didn't include mifepristone. And so Attorney General Russell Colman and I believe 13 other attorneys general are petitioning to have mifepristone considered so that it can go through basically their decision-making process to determine whether or not that substance is going to be impacting waterways and does it need to be regulated. They point to the fact that telehealth abortions are on the rise. Mifepristone, that drug, it's one of 2 pills that's used to end a pregnancy. It does have some legitimate use in terms of treating miscarriage, but they said that medication's on the rise, and because abortions are happening at home, they pointed to some research that just suggests that the chemical compounds of those pills, which what it does is it blocks progesterone, which is the pregnancy sustaining hormone that helps a baby grow throughout the first trimester. It blocks that. And they are concerned that research suggests that those compounds persist in the environment and in our water supply. So they're asking the EPA to do some research to see, does mifepristone need to be regulated, and is it effectively being filtered out of our water system?
Well, kudos for what the Attorney General is trying to do. And of course, we have pro-life laws in effect in Kentucky, but all of us know we advocate for pro-life laws, but the ultimate answer, of course, is the change of heart, which comes from the gospel. And Mark, we love reporting on creative ways that churches are sharing the gospel. Tell us what Crofton Baptist is doing.
Yeah, Crofton Baptist in Crofton, Kentucky. A little tiny place there. They say they have one stoplight, and I think it goes to a highway or something, to a different, only reason they have the stoplight. But it is like I say, a small community, and Crofton is right there, and about half the community is Amish. You know, they have, that community is right there, and what they're trying to do, for one, is trying to reach out to them they even partnered with them. A little boy had a 4-year-old boy in the Amish community had leukemia, and they had a fundraiser, like a barbecue, and just all the two groups got together and talked, and they raised $61,000, which tremendous, to be able to do that. And then later this was all the same weekend too, by the way. Their vacation Bible school was coming up, and they did a color run. And if you don't know what that is, it's like a 5K run, and you get sprayed with all kinds of colors, as you're running and before you start. And they're very popular. And they had about 150 people come, and about a third of those or more were not associated with the church. They were able to tell them about the Bible school, start some gospel conversations. And Jim Gifford is the pastor there, and he was just fired up to get I think close to 300 people is what he wanted. I think they had 199 last year. He at first said 250, and he said, maybe 300. So I don't know what the end total was, but he's real excited. That church is excited, and it's just a blessing to see a church reach into their community, and that's what they're doing. Even though they don't believe exactly like we do, they've actually invited them into their church to talk about the differences and try to learn a little bit more about each other. So we'll see how that works out. But kudos to them for being willing to step out. And he said their church has been very missional over the last 2 or 3 years, actually more than he could ever remember. So he was real excited about that, and I think he should be.
Yeah, that must have an impact on the Amish community there, to have a church reach out to them and help the way that Crofton Baptist is doing.
Yeah, they were actually stunned by how many people came from Crofton, and they cooked the meat for them. They supplied the beans, and the Amish supplied the pies, and and everybody had a good meal with that. But they were, the people there were encouraged. Not just the Crofton people. Everybody was encouraged, and I think it's starting to develop a good relationship.
I'm sure. Well, Kentucky Baptists do have a long history in Kentucky, and Chip, you reported on new growth at one of our oldest churches.
Yes, New Liberty Baptist Church is in Owen County, and Pastor Jarrett Gullion, he's been there since 2018. When he and his wife and their children joined, they virtually doubled the membership. As Pastor Jarrett said, the church over that period of years, 225 years, has had its ups and downs, but certainly an uptime right now. They're running about 80 people in Sunday morning worship. They've had 13 baptisms this year. And so the baptism totals last year and this year have blossomed and bloomed over what it had been in previous years. It's interesting, the church had a fire in the 1800s, but the four walls remain. So the four walls at that church, all the interior has been redone, but the four walls are the original walls from 1801. And when Pastor Jarrett went there, they had no children other than his own, and now they have a very vibrant children's and youth program. So just a great story. They have one man that was baptized there recently. He drives 50 miles to get to the church. So we're really, really encouraged to see churches that are flourishing in the gospel, and that is the key. They preach the gospel, they live out the gospel to people that they come into contact with. People are being saved, and the church is growing.
That's great. We're out of time, but I want to mention a couple of things. One, Chip, you also reported on going from old to new, a new church plant coming to the Stanford area, planted by a church in Somerset. Grace Baptist planting Living Word Church opens this Sunday, correct?
That is correct. Two men that went through a 3-year ministry intensive training at Grace Baptist, where they were interned, where they were discipled, where they were given opportunities to grow, and they field call to launch a church plant in Stanford, Kentucky. Now, there are a lot of churches, but they're going to be strategically located to attract people who do not go to church anywhere. They're not trying to take members from any church. As a matter of fact, they want to help other churches. But it's like 85% of people in Lincoln County do not attend anyone's church on any Sunday. So they have a great mission field. God very providentially provided for a great location for them. It's a storefront that was vacant, and they're excited about the possibilities.
And Mark, quickly, like I said, we're out of time, but I want to hear the story, at least the highlights of it, how a church, well, a creek behind the church turned from havoc to hope, as you put it in your story.
Yeah, at Elk Creek Baptist Church in Owenson, and they're a small church, very small church. They got hurt by COVID, like many small churches did. Lost a lot of membership. At that time, they were running 75. Then they got all the way down to about 30 people. But recently, they had a baptism of 5 people, and that just bumped that attendance up right now. And they baptized in a creek, and the havoc that was talked about in the story was 4 years ago when the creek flooded. It came up all the way in the parking lot, came up into the church and into the church basement, did a lot of damage. The pastor says we got all the cars off the parking lot except 3, and one was his wife's. And he said the thought that goes through your mind when you're watching your car go down the creek is not good, and that's what happened to their car. That just floated away. And but they have recovered, and they're so excited. It's interesting. The fellow, his name is Dale Duval, and he is just now retiring as a game warden from the Kentucky Fish and Game. And he said, I am devoting, all of my time now to the gospel and to this church. And, they're excited about the potential of growth there. They had new families have come in, so they're pumped up about it, I think, Lawrence.
Oh,
And if I could say real quick, Lawrence,
yes,
I know we're
please.
out of time, but it's just a good reminder, most of our Kentucky Baptist and Southern Baptist churches are small, like the 2 churches we just talked about, 60 members, 80 members. These are the bodies of believers who are the backbone of the SBC. So it's just so encouraging to hear it's not just the big churches with huge budgets that are making a difference for the gospel. It's all of these smaller churches as well. And when we all partner together, it's just encouraging to know what we can accomplish for the kingdom.
Very well said. And in fact, the SBC passed a resolution this past meeting just applauding the work of these bivocational pastors who have full-time jobs elsewhere, but also full-time jobs in their churches. And these are the small churches are the backbone of the Kentucky Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Convention. So very good point, Tessa. Thanks for pointing that out. Well, thanks for watching and for listening. Please tell others about KentuckyToday.com. Give our podcast a positive review on your favorite podcast app. And subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Just search for Kentucky Today Podcast. For more on the Kentucky Baptist Convention and the cooperative program that keeps this program and all our programs here at the KBC going, go to coapbaptist.org. Lord willing, we'll see you next time on the Kentucky Today Podcast.